The explosion tore through the eastern wing of the Valtharian palace at dawn. Glass shattered across marble floors. Smoke billowed through corridors where servants had walked moments before. Captain Marcus Chen hit the ground, instinct moving him before thought. Debris rained down around him. He rolled, came up in a crouch, hand already reaching for his sidearm. The weapon felt familiar despite being ceremonial. He'd been hired as a combat instructor, not a bodyguard, but training never left the bones. The princess stood frozen in the garden archway, her lavender skin pale even against the morning light. Her 4 eyes widened in sequence, top to bottom, a Valtharian fear response Marcus had read about but never witnessed. She was 12 cycles old, small for her species. Delicate crystalline horns barely emerging from her temples. "Down," Marcus said, not loud, firm. She didn't move. He crossed the distance in 4 strides, placed one hand on her shoulder, applied precisely enough pressure. She folded, knees hitting the stone path. He positioned himself between her and the smoke, scanning the garden perimeter. His neural implant fed tactical data across his vision. 3 guards down. No heartbeat signatures. The blast had been directed, precise, meant to kill specific targets. "I cannot kneel in public," the princess whispered. "Protocol forbids. Protocol doesn't stop shrapnel." Marcus kept his eyes moving. The garden had 7 exits. 5 were smoking. 2 remained clear. His implant marked them green. "Stay behind me. Match my movements exactly. You are an instructor, not protection detail. I should wait for... Your protection detail is dead." The words hung between them. She drew a sharp breath, all 4 lungs expanding in the way Valtharians did when receiving terrible news. Marcus felt her small hand grip the back of his jacket. "Move." He stepped forward. She matched him. Training could be built on that. They crossed the garden using planter boxes for cover. Marcus registered boot prints in the gravel, 6 sets. Military grade. The attackers had known palace layout, guard rotations, the princess's morning routine. Inside job or exceptional intelligence gathering. Either option was bad. An alarm finally began screaming. Late. Someone had disabled the primary systems. Marcus filed that detail away, kept moving. They reached the western archway. It opened onto a service corridor the nobles never used. He'd memorized it during his first week, cataloging escape routes while other instructors focused on ballroom etiquette. The corridor stretched empty, too empty. Marcus's combat sense prickled. He raised one hand, halting the princess. Listened. The alarm echoed. Smoke detectors joined the chorus. Underneath, barely audible, breathing that wasn't his or hers. "Ambush?" the princess whispered. "Smart girl." Marcus reassessed her. Most royals he'd trained couldn't spell tactical awareness. "Can you run?" "I have participated in ceremonial marathons." That's a no. He adjusted his grip on the sidearm. "When I move, you count to 3, then follow. Stay low. Head for the blue door at the corridor's end. Don't stop for anything. Where will you? 3 seconds. Count." He burst into the corridor. 2 shooters materialized from alcoves, exactly where his instinct had placed them. Marcus fired twice. The sidearm's ceremonial appearance hid military-grade internals.
Both shooters dropped.
He kept moving, checking corners, trusting the princess to follow orders. She did. He heard her footsteps 3 seconds later, light and quick despite her formal robes. She'd hitched them up. Practical. He liked that. The blue door led to maintenance shafts. Marcus palmed it open, ushered her through, sealed it behind them. Emergency lighting bathed in red. The space smelled like ozone and old metal. "They knew I would be in the garden," the princess said, her voice steady now, shock wearing off and Alice's taking over. "They knew the guard rotation. They disabled alarms. Yes. Someone in the palace wants me dead. Yes." She processed this with disturbing calm. "You protected me. You are not authorized to." "I'm authorized to keep you alive." Marcus checked his implant. 4 more hostile signatures approaching their position. "We need to move deeper into the maintenance system." "Can you climb?" "I have never been required to." "New requirement," he pointed at a ladder leading down. "Fast as you can." "I'll cover our exit." She moved to the ladder without argument. Her small hands gripped rungs meant for maintenance workers twice her size. She didn't complain. Didn't hesitate. Just climbed. Marcus waited until she'd descended 20 feet, then followed, pulling the access hatch shut above them. The ladder dropped into darkness. Red emergency lights appeared at intervals, painting the princess's face in harsh angles as she descended. "Where does this lead?" she asked. "I don't know. You seem like someone who knows things. I know how to keep you breathing. That's enough for now." They descended in silence. Above them, shouts echoed. Searchers. Whether friendly or hostile, Marcus couldn't determine. Trust no one became the operational baseline. The latter ended in a sub-level junction. 4 tunnels branched in cardinal directions. Marcus's implant offered no data on this depth. Palace schematics hadn't included maintenance infrastructure. The princess stood beside him, breathing hard but controlled. Her robes were torn. One crystalline horn had cracked. A thin line of blue blood traced down her temple. "You are injured," Marcus said. "You are changing the subject." She met his gaze with all 4 eyes.
You know combat.
"Real combat. You move like special forces, not an etiquette instructor. I'm whatever keeps you alive." That is not an answer. Footsteps echoed down the shaft above them. Multiple sets. "Pick a direction," Marcus said. The princess pointed north without hesitation. "That one feels correct. Feelings aren't tactical. They are all we have." Marcus grunted. She was right. Move. They ran into darkness, leaving the sounds of pursuit behind. The northern tunnel twisted through the palace foundation like a snake's spine. Emergency lights flickered at irregular intervals, casting shadows that moved like living things. Marcus kept one hand on the princess's shoulder, guiding her through patches of absolute darkness. She didn't stumble. Didn't slow. Her breathing remained controlled despite the pace. "You are not afraid," she observed after several minutes. "Fear is tactical data. I process it. I don't feel it." "That sounds lonely." Marcus didn't respond. The tunnel split ahead. He raised his fist. She stopped immediately. Good training instincts. Most students took weeks to learn stop signals. She'd absorbed it after one demonstration. His implant pinged. Faint heat signatures ahead. 3 bodies. Stationary. Could be maintenance workers. Could be hostiles setting up a perimeter. No way to know without reconnaissance. "Wait here," Marcus whispered. "No." He looked at her. All 4 eyes held his gaze. Stubborn. Beneath the royal protocols and delicate appearance, steel existed. "If you die, I die," she said simply. "If we stay together, we share outcomes. Better tactical mathematics." "You've been studying." "I had an excellent instructor." A small smile touched her lips. "He taught me that survival requires adaptation. Protocols exist for peaceful circumstances. These are not peaceful circumstances." Marcus reassessed her again. 12 cycles was young for Valtharians, but intelligence wasn't age-dependent. "Stay behind me." Silent. "If I signal down, you drop and don't move." "Understood?" "Understood." They advanced slowly. The tunnel opened into a larger chamber. Ancient machinery lined the walls, dormant and dust-covered. The 3 heat signatures resolved into maintenance workers huddled near a dying light panel. They looked up as Marcus emerged, fear immediate in their expressions. "Your luminescence," one gasped, seeing the princess. He started to kneel. "No time," Marcus said. "Who are you?" "Maintenance crew, sir. We heard explosions. Sealed ourselves down here per emergency protocols." "Have others passed through?" "No, sir. You're the first." Marcus studied them. Fear appeared genuine. Body language suggested civilians, not combatants. "The palace is compromised. Multiple hostile forces. We need to reach secure areas. Do these tunnels connect to the military barracks?" The eldest worker nodded. "Yes, but it's a 3-hour walk. Tunnel system is extensive." "We don't have 3 hours." Marcus checked his implant. Hostile signatures were spreading through upper levels and search patterns. Professional. Organized. Fastest route to any secure facility. "The archives," the princess said. 20 minutes through the eastern tunnel.
Reinforced structure.
Independent power systems. Communication access. Everyone looked at her. "I studied palace schematics," she explained. "Father insisted I know every corridor." I did not know maintenance tunnels existed, but architectural principles remained consistent. The eldest worker nodded slowly. "She's correct. The archives have the only independent power grid in the palace, built during the separation wars, meant to preserve knowledge if the palace fell. Marcus made the decision. We go to the archives. You 3 take a different route. Head for the barracks. Tell them the princess lives and requires extraction. Can you manage that? They nodded, already moving. Wait, the princess said. She removed a small crystal pendant from her neck, royal seal embedded in its center. Show this to Colonel Varthix. Tell him the sapphire contingency is active. He will understand. The worker accepted the pendant like a holy relic. Yes, your luminescence. They scattered in different directions. Marcus led the princess east, deeper into the tunnel network. The air grew colder, older. The emergency lights became sparse, then non-existent. Marcus activated his implant's low-light vision, painting the world in green monochrome. I cannot see, the princess whispered. He took her hand. Small, four-fingered, surprisingly strong. Trust me. I already do. They walked in darkness for what felt like hours, but was only 17 minutes. The tunnel terminated at a massive door. Valtherian script covered its surface, ancient and formal. Marcus's translator identified it as a preservation seal. Password protected, the princess said. I know it. Father made me memorize all critical codes. She approached a panel beside the door, fingers moving across symbols Marcus couldn't distinguish in the darkness. The door shuttered, then split down the middle, revealing a vast chamber beyond. The archives. Rows of crystalline storage devices stretched into the distance, each one glowing with soft internal light. The room possessed its own atmosphere, carefully controlled to preserve ancient knowledge. At its center stood a command station, active and waiting. Secure the door, Marcus said. The princess moved to the panel, entered another sequence. The massive door ground shut. Locks engaged with sounds like breaking mountains. Marcus approached the command station, assessing its capabilities. Communication systems? Environmental controls. Security feeds from throughout the palace. Someone had designed this place to function as a command center during crisis. Your father was paranoid, Marcus said. My father remembered history. The princess joined him at the station. The Valtherian throne has fallen 17 times in the last 3 centuries. Yeah, I did use, but I did use. Marcus activated the security feeds. Multiple screens materialized above the console. The palace was burning. Hostile forces controlled the main levels. They wore palace guard uniforms, moved with military precision. At least 40 combatants, professional mercenaries wearing the faces of loyalty. Who would do this? The princess whispered. Marcus zoomed in on one group. Their formation was familiar. The way they cleared rooms, covered angles, communicated through hand signals. Military contractors. Probably off-world. Someone paid well for this operation. But why? Succession. Power. Resources. The usual reasons people murder children. She flinched at his bluntness. You wanted tactical truth, Marcus said. That's what you get. I am not ready to rule, she said quietly. I am 12 cycles old. I study protocol and history. I cannot even fire a weapon. You can learn. In what time? She gestured at the screens. They will find us. This door is strong but not infinite. When they breach, I will die. That is the tactical truth. Marcus studied her. Fear had returned, but beneath it something harder remained. Determination. The kind that survived training. You hired me to teach you combat. I've been teaching you etiquette because the palace demanded it. That changes now. I do not understand. You have 100 days of contracted instruction remaining. I'm going to use them teaching you what I actually know. Survival. Combat. Leadership under fire. Everything that keeps soldiers breathing when the world wants them dead. 100 days, she repeated. You believe we will survive here that long? I believe we'll make them regret trying to kill you. Marcus activated the communication system. First lesson, war isn't about fighting. It's about making the enemy afraid to fight. We have a fortress full of knowledge, independent power, communication access, and training time. By the time they breach this door, you won't be a terrified princess. You'll be something that fights back. She straightened, all 4 eyes meeting his. Then teach me. Lesson 1. Physical conditioning. Your species has natural advantages. 4 lungs mean superior endurance. Crystalline skeletal structure provides flexibility. You're built for survival, but palace life has made you soft. That ends now. Marcus cleared a space in the archives. Basic combat stance, feet shoulder width. Weight distributed, hands up. The princess attempted the position. Awkward, off balance. Again. Better. Again. They worked for 3 hours. Stance, movement, balance, basic striking positions. She fell repeatedly, got up repeatedly, never complained. "Why don't you correct my form more?" she asked during a water break. "I am correcting it. Every repetition teaches your muscles what wrong feels like. When they learn wrong thoroughly enough, right becomes obvious. That is a strange teaching method. It's a human teaching method. We learn through failure repetition until success becomes inevitable." She considered this. Humans are stubborn creatures. It's our primary survival trait. They resumed training. The palace burned above them. Hostile forces searched systematically. But in the archives, the princess learned to stand, move, strike, basic foundations that would support everything else. By hour 6, she could hold a fighting stance without thinking. By hour 12, she could move between positions fluidly. By the end of day 1, she could execute a basic strike sequence fast enough to surprise Marcus. "Good," he said, blocking her punch. Again. She struck again. Faster. Harder. "Why do you keep saying again?" she asked. "Because again is how you get better." Day 2 began with physical conditioning, running patterns through the archives, push-ups using human and Valtharian techniques, core strengthening. The princess pushed until her muscles shook, then pushed further. "Pain is just data," Marcus reminded her when she faltered. "It tells you where your limits are. Then you move them. Human philosophy is cruel. Human philosophy keeps you breathing." Day 3 introduced basic weapons training. The archives contained ceremonial blades from ancient wars. Marcus selected appropriate sizes, taught her grip, stance, movement. She was natural with blades. Her formed physiology allowed for complex defense patterns humans couldn't replicate. "Your people were warriors once," Marcus observed. 500 years ago, before we discovered philosophy and art. Warriors don't disappear. They just get covered by civilization. We're going to uncover what's beneath." She learned blade work with surprising speed. Muscle memory from dance training translated to combat movement. Protocol studies had taught her to analyze patterns. She applied that analysis to fighting techniques, deconstructing each move into components, mastering them individually, then synthesizing them into fluid sequences. "You think differently than human students," Marcus said on day 7. "How?" "Humans learn through repetition and instinct. You learn through analysis and reconstruction. Neither is better. Both work. By day 15, the princess could fight for an hour without stopping. By day 20, she could adapt techniques mid-sequence. By day 30, she could anticipate Marcus's attacks and counter them. "You're holding back," she accused. "I'm calibrating to your skill level. Stop." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "You want full speed? I want truth. You said war is about making enemies afraid. They will not use half speed." He smiled. First time she'd seen that expression. "All right. Full speed. Don't complain when you hit the floor." She hit the floor 17 times in the next hour. Got up 18 times. The final time, she managed to block his strike and counter with one of her own. It didn't connect, but it was close.
"Better," Marcus said.
The screens showed hostile forces establishing a perimeter around the archives. They'd identified the location but couldn't breach the door. Engineers were brought in. Cutting equipment. "Explosive specialists. They're getting serious," the princess observed during the rest period. "So are we." Day 40 introduced tactical thinking. Marcus used palace schematics to teach ambush points, defensive positions, retreat routes. The princess absorbed information like a sponge, asking questions that demonstrated understanding of principles, not just memorization of facts. "If they breach the door," Marcus said, "we won't fight at the entrance. We'll let them come deep into the archives, fragment their formation, then attack from multiple angles using the crystalline storage units for cover. But I am alone. Multiple angles requires multiple fighters. You have 4 arms. We'll use them." He taught her dual wielding. 4 blades moving independently, creating a defensive sphere hostile forces couldn't penetrate without suffering casualties. She struggled initially, coordination between all 4 limbs requiring complete mental focus. But by day 50, she could fight with all 4 blades while maintaining spatial awareness. "You're not human," Marcus said, watching her train. "Stop trying to move like one. Your center of gravity is lower. Your reach is greater. Your reaction time is faster. Use what you are." She adjusted her style, incorporating Valtharian physiology into human techniques. The result was something unique, something deadly. Day 60 brought psychological preparation. Marcus taught her to control fear, process stress, maintain clarity during chaos. He simulated combat scenarios, forcing her to make decisions under pressure. Your guards are dead. Hostile forces approaching from 3 directions. You have 1 blade, no armor, and 2 civilians who cannot fight. What do you do?
She paused, fought.
I position the civilians behind the most defensible cover, engage the smallest hostile group to eliminate them quickly, use their weapons to even odds, then engage remaining forces from an advantageous position. Why the smallest group first? Quick victory provides psychological advantage. Remaining hostiles see their allies fall, experience doubt, make mistakes. Good. Again, different scenarios. They worked through hundreds of scenarios. Hostage situations, ambushes, retreats. Each one teaching her to think tactically, to see battles as problems with solutions rather than chaos to survive. Day 70 introduced leadership. Marcus taught her how to command, how to inspire, how to make people believe in victory even when hope seemed dead. Combat leadership isn't about speeches, he explained. It's about calm under fire. When everyone around you panics, you breathe. When they run, you stand. When they scream, you speak quietly. Authority isn't demanded. It's demonstrated. You speak from experience. I've commanded soldiers, seen leaders succeed and fail. The difference isn't skill. It's presence. The ability to make people believe that following you is safer than not following you. That seems manipulative. Leadership is manipulation. Just make sure you're manipulating people toward survival rather than death. She practiced command presence. Standing straight despite exhaustion, speaking clearly despite stress. Making decisions without hesitation. Marcus threw every challenge at her, every crisis scenario, every impossible choice. She met them all. Day 80 brought weapons mastery. The princess could now fight with blades, improvised weapons, bare hands. She could move through hostile territory silently, could assess tactical situations instantly, could lead imaginary soldiers through complex operations. You're ready, Marcus said. For what? Whatever comes next. The door began to fail on day 90. Cutting torches had worked through outer layers. Explosive charges weakened structural integrity. Hostile forces would breach within days. Marcus and the princess prepared the archives. They turned knowledge storage into a killing field. Narrow corridors between crystalline units became choke points. Strategic positions provided overlapping fields of fire. Escape routes were mapped, timed, memorized. They will come with superior numbers, the princess said. Numbers mean nothing in confined spaces.
We control the terrain.
We make them fight on our terms. You truly believe we can win? Marcus looked at her. The frightened child who'd frozen in the garden was gone. In her place stood someone harder, someone shaped by 100 days of discipline, training, sacrifice. I believe you can win, he said, with or without me. Day 95 arrived with a message. The communication system, silent for months, suddenly activated. Colonel Varthix's face appeared on the screens. Behind him, military forces assembled. Your luminescence, he said, relief evident in his voice. The Sapphire contingency was received. We have secured the palace approaches. Hostile forces are surrounded. We will breach the archives within 3 days to extract you. The princess glanced at Marcus. What do? We wait. We stay sharp. We don't trust anyone until they're proven. Not even Colonel Varthix. Especially not Colonel Varthix. Someone organized this attack, someone with inside knowledge. Until we know who, everyone is suspect. Day 98 brought the sound of fighting outside the archives. Explosions. Weapons fire. The battle for palace control had reached their location. The door failed on day 99. It didn't shatter dramatically, just groaned, cracked, and slowly swung open. Smoke billowed through the gap. Figures emerged from the haze. Palace guards, real ones. Marcus's implant confirmed their identities. Behind them, Colonel Varthix himself. Your luminescence, the colonel said, crossing the threshold. Thank the stars. We feared. The princess raised one hand, all 4 eyes fixed on the colonel with an intensity that stopped him mid-sentence. Colonel Varthix, she said, her voice calm, controlled, the voice of command Marcus had taught her. You will order your soldiers to secure the perimeter of the archives, but not enter. You and 1 aide may approach. Anyone else who enters will be considered hostile. The colonel blinked. Your luminescence, we are here to protect. You are here because I summoned you. You will follow my instructions, or you will leave. Choose. Silence stretched. The colonel's expression shifted. surprise. Then something like respect. "As you command," he said quietly. He turned to his soldiers. "Secure the perimeter. I will approach with Lieutenant Saren only." The soldiers withdrew. The colonel and one lieutenant advanced slowly, hands visible, weapons holstered. Marcus remained beside the princess, watching every movement. His implant tracked heart rates, stress markers, micro-expressions. The colonel appeared genuine. The lieutenant seemed nervous but loyal. "Report!" the princess said when they were close enough. "The hostile forces were mercenaries, Your Luminescence, contracted by Lord Kethrian and 3 council members. They planned to eliminate the royal family and install Kethrian as regent. We captured the conspirators 2 days ago. The mercenaries have been neutralized. Proof?" The lieutenant offered a data crystal. The princess accepted it, inserted it into the archives command station. Files appeared. Interrogation records, financial transfers, communications, everything documented meticulously. She reviewed it all while the colonel and lieutenant waited. Marcus watched her work. The frightened child would have accepted the colonel's word. The trained warrior verified everything. "This appears accurate," she said finally, "but appearances have proven unreliable. Colonel, you will place yourself and Lieutenant Saren under Captain Shen's authority until we reach secure territory. You will follow his commands as if they were mine. Your Luminescence, you are my sworn protector. Captain Shen has proven his loyalty by keeping me alive for 100 days in an unsecured location. Until you prove equivalent loyalty, he commands, is that acceptable?" The colonel stared at her, then at Marcus, then back at her. "When did you become a tactician?" "When survival required it." She stood, all 4 arms moving to rest, blades into ceremonial positions. "Not threatening. Just ready. Now, answer my question. Is that acceptable?" "Yes, Your Luminescence." "Good. Captain Shen, your assessment?" Marcus studied the colonel and lieutenant. His instincts, honed by decades of combat, read them as genuine, but instincts could be wrong. "We move to secure territory using a route I select. The colonel's forces provide perimeter security but maintain 50-meter distance. Any breach of that distance is met with lethal force. Once we reach the military command center, I will verify the security status personally before the princess enters. Acceptable?" The colonel nodded stiffly. "Acceptable." They moved through the palace in a precise formation. Marcus led with the princess directly behind him. The colonel and lieutenant followed at a respectful distance. Palace guard forces maintained perimeter security exactly 50 meters out. The palace was a ruin. Entire wings had collapsed, bodies lay beneath, debris, scorch marks scarred walls that had stood for centuries. The princess walked through it all without flinching, her eyes cataloging damage, assessing what needed to be rebuilt. "You are different," the colonel observed quietly. "I am alive," the princess replied. "The difference is consequence." They reached the military command center without incident. Marcus verified security protocols personally, checking every system, every access point, every potential vulnerability. Only when he was satisfied did he allow the princess to enter. Inside, the remaining council members waited. They knelt as the princess entered, expressions showing shock at her transformation. The delicate child they'd known had become something harder, something that had survived assassination and emerged stronger. "Your Luminescence," the chief council member began. "We are relieved." "Silence," the princess said, not loud. "Just firm. You will listen. I will speak. Then you will act according to my commands." The council members exchanged glances. No one contradicted her. "For 100 days, I trained for survival. I learned that protocol exists to serve the living, not to beautify the dead. I learned that strength without wisdom is meaningless, but wisdom without strength is insufficient. I learned that leadership is demonstrated, not inherited." She walked among them, meeting each council member's eyes in turn. "The throne of Valth has fallen 17 times because we forgot what our ancestors knew. That peace is maintained through strength. That civilization requires defenders. That knowledge without the will to protect it is merely data waiting to be destroyed." Marcus watched her command the room. Every lesson, every repetition, every moment of pain and perseverance crystallizing into this moment. "Will change," the princess continued. "The military will be strengthened. Officers will be selected for competence, not politics. Our people will remember that survival is not guaranteed by history but earned through constant vigilance. And I will not wait until I am old enough to rule. I will rule now, with advisors to guide me and guards to protect me, but the authority will be mine. Your luminescence, one council member ventured. You are 12 cycles old. Tradition required me to die in that garden 90 times ago. Her voice could have cut steel. I am alive because I adapted. You will adapt with me, or you will be replaced by those who can. Silence. Then the chief council member knelt fully, pressing his forehead to the floor in the ancient gesture of absolute submission. As you command, your luminescence. The others followed. The princess looked at Marcus. In her eyes he saw the question she didn't voice. Did I do well? He nodded once. Small gesture. All the confirmation she needed. The council dispersed to execute her commands. Colonel Varthix approached Marcus directly. You did this, he said, not an accusation. An observation. I taught her to survive, Marcus replied. She did the rest. Humans, the colonel said, shaking his head. You turn everything into a weapon, even education. We turn everything into a tool. What it becomes depends on who wields it. The colonel extended his hand in the human gesture of respect. Marcus accepted it. Thank you, the colonel said quietly, for keeping her alive, for making her strong. That's what the contract specified. The contract specified combat instruction, not the transformation of a civilization's future. Marcus shrugged. Details. The palace reconstruction took months. The princess directed it personally, working alongside architects and engineers to rebuild not just structures, but systems. She implemented military reforms, educational changes, economic restructuring, every decision made with the tactical clarity Marcus had taught her. He remained as her primary instructor, though the curriculum had evolved. They still trained physically, but now they also studied statecraft, economics, military strategy. She absorbed everything, synthesizing knowledge from multiple disciplines into comprehensive understanding. When does your contract end? She asked one evening during the training session. 2 days. She lowered her blade. Will you renew it? That depends on the terms. What terms would you accept? Marcus considered. You don't need a combat instructor anymore. You need an advisor. Someone who sees past the politics and tells you tactical truth. I'm not built for court life, but I can serve in that capacity. I want you as tactical advisor to the crown, she said, independent of military command structure, answering only to me, with authority to speak freely in all council sessions. That will make enemies. I have already made enemies. They tried to kill me and failed. Future enemies will face something worse. They will face someone who learned from the attempt. You're certain? You taught me to be certain of nothing except my ability to adapt. I am adapting by keeping the person who taught me that lesson close enough to continue teaching.
Marcus smiled.
The coronation happened 3 months after the archives breach. The princess, still technically too young to rule by traditional standards, ascended the throne with full council support. They'd seen what she'd become, seen her rebuild a shattered palace through pure will and tactical brilliance, seen her transform fear into strength. She wore traditional coronation robes, but moved like a warrior beneath them. When she spoke the ancient oaths, her voice carried command that made the words feel new, fresh, powerful. Marcus stood in his designated position as tactical advisor, wearing formal dress that felt uncomfortable but signaled respect for the occasion. He watched her accept the crown, place it on her own head rather than letting the chief council member do it, a small break from protocol. A statement. I am not given authority. I claim it. The galaxy learned of the transformation quickly. News spread through diplomatic channels, trade networks, intelligence agencies. The young Valtherian princess who had survived assassination and emerged as a tactical genius. The human instructor who had transformed her from political pawn to political force. Delegations arrived requesting similar training programs. Marcus refused them all. His contract was exclusive. His loyalty, hard-won and carefully maintained, belonged to one person. They're calling you the Blade Dancer, Marcus mentioned one day during their continuing training sessions. Because I fight with 4 blades. Because you move like combat is an art form. Because you've made violence beautiful through precision. She considered this. Is that good or bad? It's effective. Good and bad are for philosophers. 6 months after her coronation, the first challenge came. A neighboring system tested her resolve by violating trade agreements. The council recommended diplomatic negotiations. The princess listened, then deployed military forces to the border in a show of strength that made negotiations unnecessary. The violation stopped. You're learning faster than I can teach, Marcus observed. I had an excellent foundation. She smiled. 100 days of continuous pressure teaches efficiency. Those were survival lessons. Ruling requires different skills. Ruling is survival, just a different battlefield. You taught me to adapt tactics to terrain. I am adapting everything you taught to political terrain. A year after the coronation, assassination attempts had increased to 1 every 3 months. The princess survived them all, often with minimal guard assistance. She'd internalized Marcus's lessons so thoroughly that threat response was instinctive. They keep trying, she mentioned casually after the latest attempt. Fear. You represent change. Change is terrifying. Should I be less aggressive with reforms? Should you compromise survival for comfort? The answer is always no. The galaxy watched Valve transform from a peaceful but vulnerable civilization into something harder. Military expansion, economic fortification, diplomatic assertiveness. All driven by a young queen who had learned that survival required continuous adaptation. Trade partners adjusted their approaches. Military rivals reconsidered their assessments. Political analysts struggled to classify what Valve was becoming. Not aggressive, not passive. Something in between, something tactical. They're calling it the Valtherian Renaissance, Marcus reported after reviewing intelligence briefings. Because we're rediscovering lost arts? Because you're terrifying and fascinating in equal measure? Civilizations can't decide whether to ally with you or prepare for invasion. What do you recommend? Let them wonder.
Uncertainty is a weapon. You taught me.
I taught you? You adapted my lessons into principles I hadn't considered. Teaching flows both ways now. 5 years after the archives, the princess, now undeniably queen, regardless of age, addressed the Galactic Council. She'd been invited to speak about her civilization's transformation. The speech would be broadcast across known space. Marcus stood behind her as she approached the podium. Thousands of delegates representing hundreds of civilizations waited to hear her words. She spoke without notes. 100 days, she began. That is how long it took to transform me from a target into a threat. 100 days of discipline, pain, failure, and growth. I tell you this not to boast, but to illustrate a principle that applies to civilizations as much as individuals. She paused, letting the silence build. We are all one crisis away from transformation. One disaster away from discovering capabilities we never knew existed. One moment away from becoming something other than what we were. The delegates listened, transfixed. Valve was peaceful, complacent, beautiful and vulnerable. Then violence came, and we had a choice. Surrender to it or learn from it. We chose learning. We chose adaptation. We chose to become something that survives not through luck, but through discipline. She gestured to Marcus without turning. My human instructor taught me that survival is a skill, not a trait. That strength is built through repetition. That transformation requires willingness to fail, learn, and try again. These lessons apply to individuals and civilizations alike. Today, Valve is different, harder, more capable. Some call us aggressive, others call us defensive. Both are correct, and both are insufficient. We are adaptive. We respond to threats with strength, to opportunities with intelligence, to peace with vigilance. We have learned that the galaxy respects those who respect themselves enough to survive. The speech continued for another 20 minutes. When she finished, the silence lasted 3 seconds before applause erupted. Not universal. Some delegates disapproved of her message, but enough agreed to make the speech historically significant. Marcus watched her navigate the post-speech politics with the same tactical precision she applied to everything. Making alliances. Identifying threats. Building networks of influence that would serve VL for generations. You don't need me anymore, he said that evening in private. I will always need you, she replied. Not because I cannot function independently, but because you represent truth. Everyone else tells me what I want to hear. You tell me what I need to know. That is irreplaceable. You're turning me into a philosopher. You are already a philosopher. You just express philosophy through combat principles. 10 years after the archives, Queen Valve, she'd formally changed her name to reflect her bond with the throne, stood as one of the galaxy's most influential leaders. Her civilization had become a regional power. Her military had evolved into a professional force that deterred aggression through demonstrated competence. Her economic policies had created prosperity that didn't require exploitation. And at her side, always, stood the human who had taught her to survive. Do you ever regret it? She asked during one of their rare quiet moments. Regret what? Spending 100 days teaching a frightened child instead of taking a more lucrative contract elsewhere? Marcus considered the question. I took the contract because the pay was good and the posting was safe. I stayed because you proved worth teaching. I remained because you became something rare. A leader who listens, learns, and applies lessons to reality rather than theory. Yes, it is. Regret requires wishing I'd chosen differently. I wouldn't change anything. Even the parts where I nearly got you killed. Especially those parts. They proved you were learning. She laughed. The sound was rare now. The weight of rule had made joy a precious commodity. But in private moments, she could still access the part of herself that wasn't queen, wasn't warrior, wasn't political force. Just the student who'd learned to trust her instructor completely. The galaxy continued evolving. Threats emerged and were met. Opportunities appeared and were seized. Valth adapted to every change, guided by a queen who had learned that survival required continuous transformation. And in the archives, preserved in crystalline memory, a record existed of 100 days that changed a civilization's trajectory. 100 days of a human teaching an alien princess to fight, to think, to lead. 100 days that shocked the galaxy not through violence but through the simple truth that anyone, given proper instruction and unwavering commitment, could transform from what they were into what they needed to become. The record ended with a simple note in Marcus's handwriting. She asked for combat training. I taught her survival. The galaxy will never be the same. Beneath it, in the princess's script, he thought he was teaching me. I taught him too. That's what partnership means. And below that, added years later in the queen's formal hand, to all who read this record, strength is built, not inherited. Leadership is demonstrated, not assumed. Survival is earned through discipline, adaptation, and the courage to become something new. These are not human principles or Valtharian principles. They are universal truths waiting to be discovered by anyone willing to learn them. May this record serve as proof that transformation is always possible. 100 days. That's all it takes to change everything.